This is being streamed into Second Life as well, so there is an avatar audience. Unfortunately, I'm going to be showing the PowerPoint from here, so we can't, show you both of them. If there are questions from Second Life, I'm also not sure how I'm going to relay them to our audience here as well, because I don't have a hookup to Second Life. If anyone does have a hookup to Second Life here and you can hear what the audience is asking, that would be great if you could relay any questions to us. Yeah, the slurl. It's actually on the Collaboration Technology website. If you go there, down at the bottom, sorry. I don't have the slurl memorized. Okay, my name is Sue Shick. I'm an instructional designer at Case Western Reserve University. And my job, even though I am an instructional designer, has been mostly working in the virtual world of Second Life. I have a little bit of time that I can tell you a little bit about what we're doing in Second Life, what Case is doing in Second Life, and then we have two faculty presenters. We have Carolina Pereira, who is an instructor of Spanish in the Modern Languages Department, and she has some wonderful projects that she's been doing in Second Life, and she's going to share that with you. We also have a presentation from Dr. Neil Mehta from the Cleveland Clinic, and what we're doing with him is we have created a schizophrenic avatar for them to use it as standardized patient practice. So he will be talking about that as well. Yeah, so it's always something very interesting going on. So what are we doing, what's Case doing in Second Life? Okay. We started again about 2 years ago in 2007 to really have a presence in Second Life. We have on our islands, on the virtual real estate that we have in Second Life, we've created all sorts of learning environments, meeting spaces, we have outdoor amphitheaters, which is very interesting because even though we do have classrooms there, like traditional lecture rooms, almost all of the learning activity takes place, outside on the grass, in the outdoor amphitheater, etc. We have real buildings there, buildings from the Case campus and also from the community as well, from the Cleveland community. We have places for expositions of student work, which we've done in the past, and of course just some places to play, because of course that's very important to learning as well. Okay, so what is Second Life? Just in case you don't know, I just have a few little things here. It's a 3D virtual world. You can get to it online. It's free. There are, last time I looked, about 15 million avatar residents in there from all over the world. They have their own building engine, they have their own scripting language, so you can go in there and you can create just about anything that you think of you can create in here. So it's just your imagination is really the limit that you have. It's a fantastic social network. It really brings you, even though it's comparable to chatting or talking, on Skype or whatever, having your own character in there really gives you an immersive feeling that you just don't get with those other things. And we use it to work, learn, and play, and people all around the world do that as well. So the first project that we actually had on our first island that we had 7 buildings that represented 2 buildings from Cleveland. We had Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, we had the Cleveland Clinic for the buildings from the Cleveland, and then the rest of the buildings were campus buildings. And what we used it for were undergraduate admissions invited prospective students that hadn't made up their mind about coming to Case yet to come in and talk to student ambassador avatars that we had created. And we had Village at 115 created, and so they were able to take tours of that, and there were lots of interesting conversations going on. We got lots of media coverage from that, and although we don't have any real solid evidence from that, anecdotal evidence shows that we got at least 4 decisions, during that time to, come to Case because of their experience in here. So, on the campus, we have Adelbert Hall, we have Severance Hall, Village at 115, Kelvin Smith Library is on there. These are a few of the little pictures that I took of the area. We have the Spartan Diner, which is there, and we have a football field where we can play soccer and all sorts of different games. As far as the community goes, we've really done some outreach to the community, which is very different than other higher ed institutions. As far as I know, we are the major higher ed institution that does reach out to local local businesses, et cetera. So we have partnerships with the Cleveland Clinic Foundation, the Cuyahoga County Public Library, which are two big partners with us. We have the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame there, Great Lakes Science Center, the Botanical Gardens, Western Reserve Historical Society, John Hay High School, the Terminal Tower, and one of our newest partners is John Carroll University, who has come in, and they've actually done an awful lot with their students in Second Life. So we've benefited definitely from that relationship. Now I'm trying to go through this really quickly, so. One of the first really big events we had there was the IBM Spirit Group meeting. We had 3 different speakers. We had a speaker from the Cleveland Clinic who came in as her avatar. She was a doctor, and she gave a PowerPoint presentation on stress in the workplace, which I think we could all listen to. We also had a video stream that Lev Gonick did, and we had a speaker from IBM actually come in and give a PowerPoint. And I guess we had 4 speakers. And we also had Mike Benz from United Way, and he launched his Guitar Mania funding event in Second Life here. So we got excellent feedback from the IBMers who did come in there. I mean, they didn't have to travel to the local office, you know, to meet. They could meet on, you know, wherever they were, their apartment or their house. And we, you know, a lot of them said they paid more attention to what was going on in this meeting than they did at the regular meeting. So, you know, they said we got a lot of positive feedback from that. Another absolutely wonderful thing that we did, and we do quite a bit of, is simulcasting. When we simulcast Red and Orchestra concert, it was at that time the first ever American orchestra that was being simulcast live into Second Life. We had 10 cameras down at the Masonic Auditorium where it was in real life, which it was a blizzard that night, but in Second Life it was gorgeous. You know, there were stars in the sky, we had the moon, we had a martini bar, it was great. So, but down there we had 10 cameras and 22 audio feeds, so it was an unbelievable event. You know, they were switching from one camera view to another to another. We had a global avatar audience that was there from all over the world. As 150 avatars attended, so many that we had to actually hold it in 3 different locations, because in Second Life, at least the one we have right now, you have a limit of about 60 avatars per island. So we actually had to spread it out amongst 3 different islands. And we also had Second Life real life interactions there. It was very awesome. There was this one time where in the audience, the avatar audience, they were saying, what's that funny tinny sound? Because the music had this funny tinny sound. And the person who was running the cameras at that point heard what was being said, and they actually focused in the camera on this little toy piano that was part of the concert. So they, you know, it was very interesting interaction back and forth that you wouldn't maybe be able to get, you know, in an audience. So that was cool. As far as learning goes, we do lots and lots of different types of things. Professors can hold office hours here at all times of the night if they want to. We have peer-to-peer tutoring, because you can stream live video into Second Life, and you could also do PowerPoints, etc. So we have areas where we have that set up. We have classrooms, as I said, normal, regular, traditional classrooms, although not much, you know, stuff goes on in there. We have places for student work exposition. We had a wonderful display of digital stories that 15 students did in one of the SAGES classes, and we were able to stream all of those movies that they created into this big ballroom area that we had, and we then again had people from avatars from all over the world come in and actually ask questions of the students, you know, what their experience was in making the digital story, etc. So that was really powerful for the students. We actually have recreated some of the facilities we have on campus, the Virtual Worlds Lab that Mark Buckner runs. We have that recreated in Second Life, and he uses that to take tours, you know, give tours of his facilities. We have the outdoor amphitheater, and later Carolina is going to be talking about a Latin coffee shop that we built. One of the things that we're really getting into right now, big, and I think this is a fantastic use of Second Life, is we're starting to do healthcare simulations and role play. And Neil is going to be talking a little bit about that later. later. We also have done standardized patient studies with the dental school. You can see up there we had a dental office set up with a patient, and then the dental students or medical students get to practice their interview skills, you know, in this kind of environment, and practice them, you know, before they actually take them on to the patient. And then they can get feedback, of course, from, you know, the instructors that are watching them do this. We also have, this is very interesting, some bioethics simulations going on, and hopefully we'll be doing more and more of those kinds of simulations. Those involve robots or bots in Second Life, which are programmed to react in a particular way based on the decisions that the real-life avatars have created. And the one that I'm showing here is a end-of-life decision-making with a terminally ill cancer patient. And so there are things you can do, like press the morphine drip to give more morphine. You can talk to the doctor about inducing coma, etc., for palliative care. So it's stuff that perhaps students wouldn't normally, you know, be exposed to at that point, and in a normal ethics class you might just have a discussion about it. So they're doing some research to see if this brings a little more life to the discussion, and, you know, to see how that changes that. This is something Carolina's going to be talking about. We have a Latino Cafe that we've set up, and I guess I don't really want to, you know, preempt what you're doing, but we have some wonderful things that we can do there, including salsa dancing, eating. You know, you can see one of the avatars playing the guitar there in that area. This is the virtual worlds lab recreation that we have. That we have recreated the computer lab that they have, the gaming room, the immersion room. They have a separate audio-video room and a haptics room. And so we've created all of that. And Mark Buckner will take prospective students and their parents on tours through this facility. And, you know, while he's doing that, then he actually gets to talk to the students and talk about what the research is that they're doing and stuff. We've also had some interest from some of the departments in the medical school about actually setting up their facilities as well, and then inviting graduate students, prospective graduate students, in to come in and talk to faculty about their research and stuff. This is one thing that I was invited to speak at a panel in Second Life that was sponsored by the Department of State, and it was called Education Without Boundaries. There was a global audience there. There was someone from, I think, from Iran and from Iraq present there. One of the things, of course, the State Department wants to do with this is to try to use it for a cultural understanding between nations. And there were 4 panelists. I was representing CASE, and then we also had some nonprofits that, you know, were represented there as well. And of course, we try to have some fun in Second Life. However, you would think that this would be a great thing for the students to do. We held a casino week with real prizes. You know, they came in, our work-study students programmed and built a huge roulette wheel, slot machines, all sorts of stuff, plus a database to keep track of the scores when students came in, you know, to do this. It was a whole week. There were real-life prizes, but we didn't get that many students in. So, you know, that is one problem that we've had at CASE. If anyone out there in the Second Life audience has had success, more success in bringing students in, other than, you know, for academic events, I would love to hear about that. But so we're still in the process of trying to do that. And I think as more faculty actually come in and use it, we'll see, you know, more students just coming in also just to have some fun and to meet. Okay. Well, thank you very much. I know that was very, very quick. I'm going to now introduce Carolina Pereira, who is with the Modern Language Department, and we have a presentation here on her uses of teaching Spanish in Second Life.
I've been using Second Life in my classes. I started last semester, fall, and it was an option to do their presentations in Second Life. It was just to try to see if I could provide them some different scenes that they wouldn't have to go online and do some research about, for example, presentations in food, and then just copy paste into PowerPoint. I wanted them to have a different option. So we started as an option, and now it is part of the class. This is a video that we created yesterday.
Avatar.
Yeah, my avatar. I got a stream makeover yesterday. So. Can we hear it?
Okay, the sound isn't working.
We visit Mexico since I thought we were celebrating Cinco de Mayo, so students, I thought it would be good.
This island allows us to explore a little bit of the culture, Mexican culture. So I hope you enjoy my presentation
we visit
today.
Mexico
Thank
since
you.
I thought we were celebrating Cinco de Mayo, so students, I thought it would be good.
This island allows us to explore a little bit of the culture, Mexican culture. So I hope you enjoy my presentation
We visit
today.
Mexico
Thank
since
you.
I thought we were celebrating
Okay.
Cinco de Mayo. Okay, the idea was to incorporate technology to cover other areas of language learning not included in the book, workbook. For example, Mexico, Plaza Valladolid. Sometimes when I'm teaching, and even though our book is very good, it brings some videos about Mexico, Chile, places that my students want to visit, but they sometimes want more. They want to know that if they go to Mexico, they will understand the slangs, they will understand the common names of food, for example. So the idea is to add, using Second Life and being able to have this contact with native avatars from different parts of the world and Spanish-speaking countries, and get that feedback. Also to have my students see if they can prove to themselves that they can communicate with other people. So this is the classroom. I took my classroom to a lab. And there the idea was to go online, pick any island, and just describe in their own words, always using Spanish, of course, what they could do in the island, okay? It wasn't required at that specific moment to exchange ideas with native speakers, but they had to use a program, a screen recorder, Jing, in order to just record a little video that I would evaluate later on. Contact with native speaker not only allowed students to practice oral skills and improve their pronunciation, but also provide some cultural awareness, examples, legends, accents. This activity can promote discussion on cultural differences with the American culture. One of the anecdotes that I always share is that the first time we went as a classroom, we went to Second Spain, and it was recent that Obama was elected. So it was very funny to seeing everybody congratulating my students for a new president and exchanging activities, so that was very funny. This is an example of one of my students' presentation where she recorded the chat. This, she got things like the sword as a gift. So she was explaining how she had exchanged experience with that native speaker. You can see there, she's completely speaking in Spanish. And then this conversation was very interesting because the native speaker told her, "Oh, your Spanish is very good." So she was very excited about that. Then, since I started, things have evolved. Students have had ideas that I had to move on with them and fulfill their needs. So one of them was research. One of my students were telling me, "I want to study the dangers of Second Life." Then another one said, "How about if I find out Spanglish? I'm very interested." He bought some books of Spanglish. He said, "What about if I go and use these words in Spain? Will they understand me?" So students have demonstrated interest in research of certain topics not covered in the textbook. The use of Spanglish and violence in Mexico. This presentation, the student wanted to find out what are the type of crimes that are very common in Mexico, so they worked on that. How are we using Second Life in our Spanish course? We have a Latin coffee shop. For the virtual tour, we start here in the coffee shop, and then we have meetings that start in the coffee shop. They exchange ideas, and then we pick an island where the majority speak Spanish, and there we are. Second Life allows students to practice vocabulary in a context with nice graphics. This meaningful context allows them to go beyond the vocabulary provided in the book, because they sometimes complain that if they travel, they cannot just describe what's in the kitchen or the vocabulary of the house, so they want to know more how to use it. This is the creation of machinima from one of my students.
Go ahead and explain it first.
Oh, okay. Here he went to this island and he had to describe what he was seeing. He went to an island that had some different Latin singers. So he read, they had little signs that said the type of Latin music.
Latino
That's his
música.
voice there.
Hay muchas exhibiciones en luego, y aquí es un segue para las personas que no quieren caminar, y este es un elevador para
this type of stairs. That's an elevator, which
Y aquí hay mucha música. Y este es
music, you can play music, name the artist.
para
On the right side,
oír.
Batanga, salsa, all sort of Latin music. So it's a
Yes,
for them to combine what they're
batanga,
learning
salsa.
and personal interest. So when we did this activity, they said they thought it would be fun, but then they realized that it was very
puede
difficult
bailar
to be recorded. They had to come up with all new
muchos
words, ideas.
como
and they
salsa,
said, "Oh, can we
lambada,
just write,
y dance club."
before we record?" And I said, "No, you just have to go and start from there." So just to try to make them think in Spanish, which I think it's very,
Mi
very
character
difficult sometimes.
es bailando.
Yeah, he's making
Con
fun
la
and he
música.
started dancing. And it's very funny that he chose among all the Latin dances breakdance. So I couldn't make them still move to Spanish. Then freedom to visit different islands allows students to be creative and combine language learning with personal interests. This freedom may help to increase students' motivation. Students who visit islands related to their majors or job-related interests. This was very interesting. This student is from a school. I tried to combine like Latin islands, but then if they have interest in, for example, architecture, I have students that analyze the different architecture buildings that you can see in Second Life and combine them. This student, since he's Russian, he had different interests and he visited this little island here.
Moscow, en la Plaza Roja. Allí
That was all
es
you can see that
el
sometimes he has
Kremlin,
to add and
a
then
esta
stop and think.
estructura. Este es el mausoleo de Lenin. Este es el cuerpo de Lenin. Lenin era el
Then it was funny because the class would want to see what other people were doing, so they would just switch and see the other students' video. That's it.
y de la Unión Soviética en el año 1917 y nosotros caminamos aquí. Un facto interesante sobre este edificio aquí, los edificios de gobierno tienen los edificios del Politburo, de los exorcidos de KGB, que se llama carros de las personas importantes. Este son Ferrari y yo no sé qué es los otros, pero sí es.
I also had some students that were very creative and used Second Life to create short stories. So this is a presentation of a student that wanted to get married with his girlfriend, his other classmate in Second Life, of course. He wasn't sure if he loved her, so he decided to go all over the world. So he picked different places in Second Life. And at the end of the story is that they got married because he realized that he loved her. So.
It's so romantic.
Yeah, that was romantic. I also had another student, the adventures of Lalafox, all the places that he wanted to visit. So he just described, add music to his adventure. Also, I used them for interviews in Second Life. I did them from my house, and then I realized that they stayed more than what they stay in my class. So I realized that they would join other students doing their interviews that in real life doesn't happen. They just see the clock and they want to end it very fast. So we also had the opportunity to have Dr. Madeline Camera, a speaker, come to real life and screen it in Second Life. So if they weren't able to be in the moment, they had the chance. We have an art exhibition in the coffee shop. That's a Venezuelan artist. We also use these as when we did the undergraduate presentation for students that were invited to Case Western, new students. So this is a Venezuelan artist, just to see how we're trying to bring speakers to the Latin coffee shop so they can have that contact with different cultures. Then I asked my students anonymously to give me some feedback. Some wrote their names, some didn't. So we have comments like, Second Life is very useful for language students because it gives us the opportunity to practice in another setting with native speakers from all over the world. It is fun, but sometimes difficult to understand native speakers. Okay, so they will always complain about that. Second Life helps you become comfortable with speaking Spanish. When people find out you are a student, they are often more than willing to help you out. and very understanding. So I usually, if I'm going with the classroom to a specific island, I would go before and tell them I'm bringing some students, and then just to have a couple of people prepared to speak with them in Spanish. Then not so positive, I like Second Life because it is a great way to learn about other cultures, but I encounter some issues with the software. Sometimes if they don't have a computer that will be able to use a Second Life, they might encounter problems with that. We also use a program called Jing project for the screen recorder for all their videos. Sometimes it had a mute button, so that would create a confusion while trying to record the video. It is useful because we can practice our speaking skill, but not many people are willing to talk. And there are a lot of creepers. It is fun to explore though. Some people were scared to start a conversation, how to start it if the topic was to talk about the jobs. Not everybody in Second Life was interested about jobs, okay? So future plans. I would like to contact other instructors and university to join our classes to share interests of students of the same age from different countries. Then create some videos related to the vocabulary for each chapter and combine them with some exam posted on Blackboard. Okay, these are my future plans for the summer. And then I will be teaching Spanish for lawyers class. I have my J.D. from Venezuela, so I always wanted to combine it with my Spanish classes. So I'm planning to set up a courtroom and simulation of legal cases for the Spanish for Legal Practitioners class.
Cool.
Thank you very much.
I'll try and make this generic, but I think if you look at the project we are doing and some of the others that we are planning, you can start some wheels spinning in your brain as to how you could use this yourself in your areas. So one of the big things is in medicine is when we are teaching or working with medical students, the biggest hurdle is they get so exposed to technology as they are going through the hospitals, they sometimes start thinking that takes the place of working with people. And patient interviewing skills, it has been shown that if you go in to see a physician with an acute problem, 50% of the diagnosis can be made just by getting a good history. And so it's critical that the students learn how to do this right. And so that's one of our goals, and it's something that they learn throughout their years, and I think we never stop learning. Every time we see a different type of patient or a problem, we learn something from there. So traditionally, how do medical schools deal with this? How do they teach students how to take history? And one is the faculty, they're looking at other preceptors and faculty and they're modeling themselves. But in addition to that, a lot of medical schools will have these formal sessions where they'll have a standardized patient or an actual patient who gives consent and has a videotaped encounter, and then the faculty sits down with the student and they go over the whole encounter and say, what could you have asked different? What do you think the patient was actually trying to say here? What do you get from the body language that maybe the patient wasn't saying, but maybe the hands were all closed up like this, something like that. You have to learn from all that. So what is the problem there? You know, generally the one big issue is training time. There's a lot of hit or miss. You know, faculty has a little lighter day today and you get a perfect patient and they sit down and actually watch the student take a history, they'll get some great feedback. But it's really hit or miss, and I can, I guess, safely say in this audience, we have had residents who will tell us they went through the entire medical school and not once did anyone watch them take a patient history. And this is true for almost any medical school in this country. It happens. So it's pretty scary. And the schools recognize this, and they're trying to put in place some kind of a formal mechanism where this very key portion is not ignored. So most schools have something called standardized patients, and these are patients who are given a script and they say, you're going to be the patient with congestive heart failure. This is what you need to know. And then there's a lot of training that needs to happen. These are usually lay people. And then the patient problem is they are trained to give feedback, they're trained to answer the questions related to that, but if the student makes a mistake and thinks it's actually a heart attack or something else, the script doesn't cover that, and it kind of just becomes very flat, and you lost a tremendous teaching opportunity, because instead of CHF, they are now thinking of something else. This is where you should put on your educational hat and try and figure out why are they thinking of something else. That actually gets lost. So what can we do? And we are right now doing this as a feasibility project of seeing if we can use Second Life as a more formal basis for helping students learn interviewing skills. So we're working with Sue and Wendy on this project. And what we did was we set up an office where a student will control the avatar of a physician. And a patient walks into the room, and the patient's avatar is actually right now controlled by one of our clerkship directors. It's a preceptor, a faculty member. But the student may or may not know this. If they recognize the voice, they'll get it, but sometimes they don't know it. And so the person on the right obviously is the patient, and the person on the left is the student who is a physician. The faculty member actually has access to these menu items that they can change the expression and make the person look sad, angry, frown, upset, what have you. And in addition, as they are talking, their hands can move like a lot of people will move their hands. So there'll be a little bit of a gesturing going on, and the lips are also moving as they're talking. So it looks more real than it would if you just put a picture in front of the patient. And the student, in addition, can stay anonymous. So the faculty member doesn't know who the student is, which adds to the, couple things. You can get more honest feedback. And Sue is actually a wizard who can change the voice from male to a female or whatever. So you can totally mask the student's identity and get very honest feedback about the encounter. And like we just heard, you can capture the entire encounter digitally because it's built into the system. So you don't have to set up a videotape and all that. Plus, being anonymous, you don't have to worry so much about reusing the tape somewhere else because the student's identity is never known. So.
And how's your studying being at school? Do you feel like you can concentrate on your academic stuff?
I think so. I think I'm doing all right. What was the question?
Because you were saying that you're having a hard time catching up after you started. I mean, you took a week off because of your Crohn's disease. You had a hard time catching up. So I was just wondering how your studying was at school. Oh, are you leaving?
No, I'm feeling kind of restless here.
Oh.
So that's a very brief snippet of actual encounter. And you can see, we get asked this question, why don't you just do this over the phone? And I think this answers the question. There is something more. Talking over the phone or chatting by, on Yahoo or instant messaging does not capture this experience. And this is a study we are doing where we have about 20-minute interviews where the students asking questions, the preceptors answering them, controlling the avatar. And this was a wrinkle that wasn't in the case. Once the students started asking more questions about attention and not doing well at school, the preceptor modified this, and you can clearly see that this attention deficit hyperactivity thing, he just made it up on the spot. And the question was, is she going to pick up on that and go further? So this gives us much richer control rather than just the scripted standardized patient thing. So what are the questions we are trying to answer? One, is this more convenient than doing it in real time? Both time and place. Is this less intimidating? A student sitting in front of a faculty member who is trying to act and do this, I think it's not going to flow well. Plus, students in their very early clinical years may feel this is easier than being face-to-face with a real patient. They may want to practice their skills in this way. Does anonymity help? We're trying to find out. Is the encounter richer than just a phone or a chat encounter? And does it meet the educational needs? And we have given a checklist to the faculty and say, if you wanted to assess the student on these skills, on interviewing, etc., after this encounter, would you be able to use this tool to assess them? Or is this something that seemed so contrived that you would not be able to really use this for assessment? And do the students like this? Do they find it acceptable? So we are doing a qualitative study right now. Actually, just this morning I ran over because we had 4 students, one after the other, doing this. And I'm working with a researcher who's very good at qualitative research. She interviewed them after the encounter and is going through specific questions, and hopefully we'll have some data back soon on these questions. So where can we take this? I mean, I think it's clearly something in between a real life and the other types of virtual encounters. Potentially, if this works, I think medical schools can collaborate with each other to create these cases. We can have one centralized resource where, psychiatry's program can develop a few cases and provide some faculty to work with people, and each specialty can provide their own faculty to work on this. So we would have patients at different specialties. We can, there are tools like VoiceThread. I don't know if any of you have seen that. If you ever have a video and you want feedback on a video, you can use VoiceThread. It's, I think, free for educational use or a very minimal fee. And you can just post it on VoiceThread, and people can put comments, audio, video, or text so I could click, say you put in a comment on this video, I could click on your image and read all the things you said, and someone else could say something else, and you could gather all that, and then it becomes a very rich feedback type of environment. And then potentially we can give this tape to the student, and they can share with their own preceptor and say, these are the 3 things they told me I'm having problems working on with the next patient. Can you just focus on these and give me some ideas? And so they have their own tool that they can take around with themselves and help themselves. And one potential, I think a lot of retired physicians want to give back. And this is something where we can use them and say, look, here, you want to sit at home and help us? Here is a tool that you can use to do this. So this is possibly a project that I think if it takes off, we can work on it and collaborate with other programs. A couple other projects that we are working on. We just, again, working with Wendy and Sue and actually the Smart Center, we just applied for one of the challenge grants from NIH to create a virtual home. It's the buzzword right now, virtual medical home, and for diabetes. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. And secondly, training students for their future role in chronic conditions. So the virtual medical home, what we're looking at is patients with diabetes would be enrolled in a study where they would get access to a Second Life virtual home. And at this home, there would be other patients with similar condition, which is diabetes. We have diabetes educators. We have chronic disease management experts who help with motivational interviewing. And we have educational psychologists. And they are going to be part of that home. And they will work with, so there will be different groups. Out of 50 people, we'll have probably 8 or 9 groups. And each group will create a list of things they want to work on, and they'll work with these other, it's a little bit like AA, but for diabetes. But here we have it set up so the people are anonymous. And there is actually a lot of literature coming out. If you want to look it up, it's called SIDE. It's something about social identity when you are de-individualized. And this is clearly in anonymous settings, in computer-based anonymous settings, do people, they lose their personal identity a little bit, and the group identity rises to the top. And this helps in group learning. And we are trying to leverage that and see if maybe we can manage diabetes better this way than in a live session. This is one of my pet areas, is, as we started treating acute problems so well, I mean, person keels over outside the sidewalk, it'll be whizzed over, has an acute heart attack, will be whizzed over down the street, he'll survive. Most times people will survive because we're providing such good care for acute problems. They're left with a chronic problem because now they have heart failure or a stroke or something. And that is where we don't do so well, because that we never train students to manage so well. Most students, in most cases, are seeing patients same patient once or twice during their 4 or 5 years. So they really don't know the chronic problems a person has and how they deal with them. To manage chronic disease, patients really have to take a more central role. They have to take ownership of their condition. And The student or the physician has to be on the side. Is a mentor, is a consultant, is a motivator, but you cannot manage day-to-day conditions. You don't have the time. You have to find a way to make the patient take the lead and learn how to play a role where you are not just dictating, take this medication, do this test, come back in 6 months. Doesn't work. So how can we get our students to start thinking about this? And so we are looking at, we do PBL all the time. Our students work with each other and they do collaborative learning. Problem is the patient is missing. And for chronic conditions, we need the patient as a part of that collaborative learning process. And so potentially what we can do is have a core group of patients who are willing to work with students, say one with diabetes, one with hypertension, one with heart failure. And they meet with the students early on in their first year or second year of medical school, and then they consent to become friends in some private social networking environment. Maybe Second Life, maybe Facebook, but somewhere it's private. And then every time they have something happen to them, they will post in that environment or they meet and chat. And the student will communicate with the patient and learn that, he went to see the physician. Physician said, your diabetes is poorly controlled, take this pill or double it up. And now I'm doubled it up and I'm getting diarrhea and I don't know what to do. Should I stop the pill? Should I do this? Or the pill is so expensive, I don't know what to do. Should I go back and ask for something else? These are real problems that students never learn about because they see the patient once, they see them 6 months later when something else has happened to them. So they would be partners with them, act as their educator, motivator, medical guide. And this would not be a substitute for medical care. It's just a parallel thing. But over 4 or 5 years, they would work with them and hopefully learn how to manage chronic conditions, because I think that's where the future is. We're going to be left with a lot of people, who are older, with a lot of chronic problems, and a lot of physicians who just know how to manage acute problems. So hopefully we can use a media like this to encourage them to partner with patients. So those are two possible models that we are working on. So I'll end there. Thanks.
We have a few moments, maybe a couple minutes, if anyone has any questions. Barbara?
I'm watching the Second Life feed. The question is, can you really use public sites to facilitate faculty and student feedback without getting into legal issues? Are these open to the world, or are these closed?
Yeah, so I think you can speak to some extent about how you can restrict access to some of these sites. And I think Second Life is coming out with a new set of servers which are secure. So they would literally be like being on your intranet, if that answers your question.
Yeah.
I was going to ask, just like I asked you, what was the Smart Center you said you're collaborating with?
Yeah, Smart Center is something actually based here at Case. And Shirley Moore is the person who runs that. It's one of the only 2 NIH-sponsored chronic disease self-management centers of excellence. And it's one of the very good resources we have anytime we deal with chronic diseases. So they are researching how to manage chronic disease better.
Yeah. Oh, Stuart has a question?
I can't remember what you called it, but where students go to a private place and have patients as friends. These are real patients?
No, this is these would be real patients.
So how do you protect boundaries there? In other words, are the students going to be giving advice? Are the students supervised? What are the malpractice implications of that?
Right. No, I think, so this was, like you saw, it was a proposed project. We haven't threshed out the whole thing. These are great questions. I think the model would be that these are patients who you have work with, who consent to this relationship. And they know this is not a substitute for traditional care. This is, in a way, they are helping train us, students of the future, because they have to be partners. And the students will learn from the process, but it doesn't, even now, students take care of patients, but we have to supervise them. But that's in the environment that we have created, which is the hospital or the setting.
But it's going to be so seductive because, one of the things about medical students in the hospital is that they're the one person that might sit down and listen to you for a period of time.
That's a good point.
And patients often really feel like they're their doctors because of that. And I would think in something like that, there's a real potential for patients to start using them, and them to be very tempted to be helpful by giving advice.
So no, I hear you, and I think these are very valid questions. I don't think we can proceed without getting good resolution to these.
Do we have one more question? Oh, we have two. Okay, yeah. LaRue?
I just had a general question about how much it costs to do something like this. I mean, accounts are free, correct?
Yes,
but to do like the cafe or like, you know, the patient thing, I mean, is that something that you can also just set up for free, or do you have to?
That's related to my question. My question was, what size support staff does KCF to enable all the second? No, I'm serious.
Kind of supports. Pretty much at the moment. Certainly what Neil is doing, we have a relationship with the Cleveland Clinic Foundation. They were one of the founding members of our islands. So they have paid us a certain amount of money, and then we provide services for them. In Neil's case, I think, or the Cleveland Clinic's case, they're going to be, you know, eventually running this stuff on their own. So yeah, there is a fee that we charge for outside of the university. For inside of the university, that's another question. You know, if you have grant money and you have a project that you want to do, you know, we will be more than happy to do that. But we, for instance, with Carolina, just in trying to launch Second Life as a place for students to come in and for faculty to use, we've supported that pretty much just, you know, with what we have available. So, yeah, but I think, you know, there are a variety of different price ranges for those services. Okay, great. I think we're getting, we only have like about 3 more minutes left. Oh, I'm sorry, we have a question, another question?
I was just wondering, this morning, this announced that there was going to be like this private Second Life just for case.
Right.
What sort of things faculty might be able to do with that if they use more?
Right, well I think that's one of the things that we're going to be using to support the Cleveland Clinic and allow for that privacy there. You know, there are so many different uses. One of the uses, of course, we want to do is to provide for mixed age education, which you can't do in normal Second Life. So we, you know, have all sorts of projects that are starting up now that we have this ability to work with, you know, kids and adults in Second Life together. And since we're going to have those servers available, we're more than happy to work with people in that setting. So that's something that's very exciting for us. It's been very much a frustration for ever since I've been in Second Life that you cannot, you know, there's a separate teen grid and there's a separate adult grid. And there shouldn't be mixing of the two. But now in this private environment, we can do that. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming.